The lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Over the last 20 years, the landscape has changed, and certain artists or groups have played a significant hand in the change of, the styles, sonically, dress code, etc. Now, for me personally, and this is in order, I kind of feel like the game changes of Australian rap kind of start with, Lyrical Commission, and then came the Hilltop Hoods, because I think LC dropped Stage's set in like 01, 02. Hoods dropped The Calling in 03. That's what ended up on the Jays. That's gone bang. And then I reckon around 2010-ish, Curse has come into the picture. And then that's kind of flipped shit on its head. Then fast forward the clock to 2019-ish. Then 1-4 has come through. And, that's kicked off a whole new thing. And then Hooligan Hefts then comes through with the whole blend of EDM and rap music. So in this sort of 20-year chunk period, they're the 5 names that stand out to me in terms of the conversation of game changers. Would you agree, disagree, change some of the names, add some names? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'll put maybe 2 more in. I think in the 2018 space, I think ChillinIt has to be mentioned somewhere there, because even though what he was doing wasn't revolutionary, he was really the figurehead of that new wave of underground stuff and he took that to kind of the most insane heights. You know what I mean? He was really the spearhead that kind of took the underground scene to new heights. I would also maybe put Younger Lips in there somewhere, purely because I think he's the flagship artist that kind of started doing the melodic stuff over heavier beats, but also fit in with the drill movement. So I'd almost put him alongside 1-4 and Hefts maybe, because I swear there was a period as well, obviously it was happening internationally with Polo G and those kind of guys, but locally, he was the kind of guy who was really bridging that melodic gap when the drill explosion happened, and he was doing it the best. And I think if we have this conversation in 2 years, I think Cahooks is going to be in that conversation as well, because I feel like we're in this era of drill music now where people are getting a bit tired of the violent lyrics, and he's the one that's doing drill with pop sensibilities that can be played in the club that girls are going to dance to. And obviously we've seen that overseas with guys like Central C. So I feel like he's going to be that next iteration that kicks off, people ask every day, where's the drill scene going? Is drill dead, doing this, doing that? I think it's just going to evolve, and I think that's going to be kind of the main iteration of drill going forward. And I think Cahooks is going to be the guy that kicks that off. Yeah.
Now, out of those list of names, I'm going to pluck a few, and then, you tell me why you think that particular artist has had the levels of success that they've had. So I guess the first one, Cursor. Why do you think that when Cursor came through, it was such a phenomenon, and, he's still highly active and popular, 10, 12 years later? What do you think it is about Curse that really, propelled him to the level that he's at?
I think Curse just spoke to a particular subculture in Sydney that was big at the time and that no one else was willing to do. Other people were willing to do, but he did it on a level which was unprecedented at the time. I think he just had an attitude that he doesn't give a fuck about what anyone else thinks, and he's just going to do it. I mean, we were just talking about Hooligan Hefts, right? When you listen back to the dead sets and stuff, he was doing that, hard dance with rapping hybrid with throwback samples, and he just did that song with Joel Turner. You know what I mean? He was doing all this stuff way back then, and to her credit, so was Sky High, doing that kind of rave or, you know, hard dance mixed with the rap. And that being such a huge sound in like whenever it popped off, 2018, 2019, to hear Curse do it, you know, back then, you know, imagine how much hate he got for that back then. So I really give credit to him for, you know, what he represents, doing it with a no fucks given attitude. And obviously it's built like an amazing long career for him. You know, he's stayed on top for many, many years. Like you said, whatever it's been, 10, 12 years that he's been killing it. And I'm sure the album that he's got coming out, his 10th album, I know that Open Till Late's been working on it. I'm sure that's going to be a huge success too. So yeah, props to Cursor, man.
Although, you know, artists like Hooligan Hefs, ChillinIt, you know, all the guys that we've named that have come after Cursor, although their styles are different, I kind of feel like Cursor paved the way for these newer guys to be able to do what they're doing today. Do you feel like that's a fair statement?
I feel like that's a very fair statement. I feel like everything we've seen happen since 2018, it was almost Cursor who laid the blueprint for that, to do it independently, and to do it so kind of like abrasively against what was happening at the time. You know what I mean? Like, I even remember there was this weird situation about the Come Together festival where Cursor got billed, and then he was billed with a bunch of other Oz rap acts, and then he got dropped because of... Do you know what I'm talking about? There was some weird situation that happened there. So like, it just shows you that like, you know, the narrative against Cursor was kind of like, oh, he's just like a lad rapper. He's like a Centrelink rapper doing this, doing that. And I really feel like even nowadays, like drill, even though it's a completely different style of like music, that kind of like, you know, the aesthetics and the attitude is like very, very similar. And I feel like Cursor was the first one to take it to such heights and, you know, give him his flowers while he's here, you know, and while he's still rapping, because it's just like insane what he's been able to do. And, you know, I heard, well, off a Take Flight interview that there might be some sort of Cursor Hooligan Hef's actual collabo coming up in the future. So I hope that happens, man, because it'll really be like a full circle thing, you know, like I said, Cursor doing, not only being like an underground icon, but doing that, you know, dance rap style, and then Hef's being kind of like the flagship at doing it now, and them two coming together. I think it's going to be like a big event, you know?
That'll be huge, man. I hope that happens. That'll be great for the culture. Do you recall when Cursor battled 360? Like, were you up to date with that when it was happening, or that was...
Yeah, I watched it not that long ago again. Just for, yeah, I don't know why. There was one day where I watched that, and I watched the Highest Man, the track he did over the Outcast Miss Jackson instrumental. Yeah, I don't remember like the details around it, but yeah, I remember like watching it. I remember 60 had a line about, the one that stuck with me was the one about like something tennis instructor, you know, like all that shit. Like, yeah, like that was funny when it happened. That whole thing was funny. It was weird though. It was like how it was all like kind of, it was kind of like set up in a way where it was like lads versus metros. You know what I mean? It was like very weird. And when we interviewed Cursor like a couple of months back, or on the A1 podcast, it was funny because we actually talked about that, and he was talking about, oh yeah, you know, like people said lads versus metros, and now like over time they've kind of like melded a little bit, you know, like back then it was like not that socially acceptable to wear TNs or tailwinds or this and that, and then slowly over time all these kind of like fashions that were once laughed upon kind of got molded into just like mainstream sportswear. So yeah, it's just like a funny full circle moment when we asked him about that on the interview. But yeah, I remember watching that. I don't know if I watched it when it first, I don't even remember what year it would have come out. Was it like kind of like around 10 years ago or something? Like
around that, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I don't remember like the full thing around it at the time, but yeah, I remember it being a landmark thing, and still to this day, you know, obviously people talk about it. And then yeah, it's funny.
When you watched it recently, because I watch that battle like once or twice a year. When you watched it recently, who do you feel won?
It's hard to say, man. It's hard to say. I'm always going to say Cursor because I'm more aligned to that style of music. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always going to be... He's obviously like more the artist that I've gravitated towards that kind of scene. So I'm always going to say him. But then I'm sure a lot of people say 60 as well, because 60 is a great rapper, you know, and I've heard he's got new stuff coming out. You know, I've actually never met him personally, but, you know, I've heard like through other people that he's got new stuff coming out, and fucking oath, because like I think it's good that he started Rapper Tag last year, because he's a really good rapper. He's a really, really good rapper. But I think purely out of just who he is and what he represents, I'm always going to just go for Cursor. You know what I'm saying? But 60's a crazy rapper, and I think, yeah, shout out to him for tagging Nerve in the Rapper Tag and all that. Yeah.
The lesson.
927. Oh, yeah.